daughter qualify as a 501c?
Most of any of the educational institutions will. Most of the fraternities will.
So
sororities
you
could.
do a donor advised fund and say give it to the university.
As long as it's a 501c.
Yeah.
And there's GuideStar is a website that has, you basically type in the name and it'll pop up or it won't. And the whole donor advised fund is charitable giving kind of for dummies. You can't screw it up. They will only send it out to a qualified charity. A foundation, you can blow that thing up. You can really goof it up. So that's another reason I like the donor advised fund stuff.
But then if it's a donor advised fund, it has to go on to a charitable organization.
Yes, it's got to go to a charity.
You don't want it to necessarily go to a charitable organization, and then it's for perhaps some other reason for other family members. Is it better to
Well,
set that up
if it's for other family members, then it's not charity.
Right, so you can't do it
So that's
that
not
way.
a donor advised
So
fund, and
that's
that's not a foundation. I mean, when I first started in the mid-90s, the Illinois Charitable Division was shutting down these foundations because you and I, mom and dad, had the 3 kids and we met in Aruba for 2 weeks on the foundation. So we put in $500,000, we got a charitable deduction for income tax purpose on the $500,000, and we had some great family vacations. And we gave away $10,000, but we spent about $60 down there.
Oh.
That kind of fell out of favor, so they really shut those down for all the abuses. And then the donor advised fund came in, and Fidelity being the giant in the industry, but basically, I encourage everybody to work with their financial institution or their person, and however it seems, it dovetails with the other stuff you're doing. I personally have a Fidelity one just because I started mine ages ago, and they do a great job. Yes, please.
So you can take money out of your IRA and put it into a donor advisory?
Yes, if
And then
you're over 70 and a half, and it's only up to 100K.
But it can go to the donor advisory? I thought
Yes, sir.
over 70 and a half, I thought it had to go right to the charity.
This is an exception under the code.
Okay, so you can, and now will that count toward RMD?
It will count towards
It
RMD.
won't show up as a withdrawal then?
Right, you never got it. So it's like a paycheck. If I gave you a paycheck, you got to pay income tax on it. Instead, I put it in the donor advised fund. So you never got your IRA. It went to the donor advised fund. You never received it. You never have to report it as income. You don't get a deduction for charitable purposes, and it's in the donor advised fund. But it never got hit with income tax. So another solution for your big IRA. Charity you get. Other questions? Anybody else? Any other questions? I can wrap it. I can tell some more stories. I can get a beer and we can call it a night. Whatever you want.
Have a beer.
Michael, could you explain what, a lot of us have got grandkids that are 18 or over. Healthcare power of attorney, what's important?
Oh, that's a great question. So, question came up about when you're an adult, remember that over 18, you get your money as a beneficiary under Illinois law. You're an adult, you're a legal adult. Can't drink a beer, but you can die for your country and you've been driving it for a couple years. Go figure. Anyway, so when you're over 18, you can sign documents. You can sign a will. You can sign a trust. You're a legal adult. We've started doing for a lot of our clients when the kids or the grandkids are going off to college. We do powers of attorney for property, power of attorney for health care, and a living will. Why? When they go off to college, if something happens with your college-bound youth, but they're over 18, they smack you upside the face with HIPAA saying we can't talk to you without consent. This is your consent. So it's really nice to do that on the front end so that you don't run into the problems where it can be a big transition for kids going from being at home to being at college. So having those documents in place is really helpful. On the same hand, having all those documents on place as we're in sort of, there's nothing that I like less than going to hospitals to sign wills and trusts and stuff. It's just not your place. It's really good to do it front end. front end when you're going off to college for the young kids as they're just getting out there to experience things. But you know, it's an easy back. What I do is an easy back burner thing. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next year. You know, delay. So I do encourage people to kind of figure it out. I've tried to create a process. The way we do things is flat fee. So once I know what I need to do, we do a lot of them. We're happy to do a flat fee. Other questions?
You have your trust and powers of attorney and all that in one state, and you move to another state, does that all have to be redone in the new state?
So there's a thing called comity, which is we respect what one state did from another. Like if you and I entered into a contract and you moved to Wisconsin, I could still enforce the contract. So it is enforceable, but I recommend that we do powers of attorney for property and health care, and we look at that page 12 on the state tax comparison to make sure. It used to be New Jersey was the lowest at $675. I haven't looked to see what had changed. But that was the exemption amount. You thought it was bad at Illinois with 4, moved to Jersey when it's $675. I think it went up to a couple million. You have to look on page 12, I don't recall. But so, power of attorney, property and health care. You gotta also be careful because there's a few states that are what we call community property states. We're a common law state as we relate to property. Community property states are California, Arizona, there's a couple more, like probably Washington, I think, is a community property state. There's a few of them, it's just a little, there's some wrinkles. Good question. I've been holding out on everybody. I've got one more handout. I'll share a couple of these, but I want to make sure there's other questions. Does anybody else have more questions? Any more questions, you're welcome to see me. Your idea about charity was great. Your idea about the Genesee was great. I've been on the board of the Genesee Theater for now over 10 years. And they've got Craig Ferguson that's coming up there. And we've got our little fundraiser, but it'd be a fun night. But keep the Genesee in mind when you're doing things. For a mere $125, you get a ticket, beer, wine, and my company. Sure.
We're going there to see holograph.
And Michael,
On November 3rd. But I mean, there's tickets. This is our one fundraiser we have a year. I think it's to send kids to art camp or something.
and I'll scan that and put it on.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
No problem.
And you just call the box if you're interested, or just get tickets and go. It's a great venue. It's probably 45 minutes from here, but.
Michael, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, we have one last thing.